The vast space station Verith orbited a red gas planet, its metal hull reflecting the light of distant suns. Inside the main corridor, soldiers of the Thal Empire moved with quiet discipline. The Thal were tall, with smooth lavender skin and silver eyes that could see in infrared. They ruled a region of the galaxy known for strict order and advanced technology. That day had started as normal. Patrol teams inspected the outer hangar. Engineers ran maintenance checks, and the air hummed with the steady rhythm of machinery. But peace lasted only a short time. In Section 9, Captain Rinla of the Thal Security Division walked alongside her team, giving instructions. She was young, but already respected. Her movements were precise, her voice sharp. She had been trained to show no weakness. As she gave orders to her crew, a sudden pain struck deep in her lower torso. It felt like fire running through her veins. She stopped mid-sentence, her breath catching. One of her soldiers, Taryn, turned in concern. "Captain, are you all right?" Rinla shook her head. She tried to speak, but the pain doubled. Her knees gave way. The crew caught her before she hit the ground. Her face turned pale, her eyes flickered. And then she fell unconscious. "Medical emergency," Taryn shouted into his communicator. "Captain Rinla has collapsed in Section 9. Within minutes, the medical unit rushed in. They carried her to the infirmary, a bright white chamber filled with glowing instruments. The Thal medics worked quickly, scanning her vitals. A holographic image appeared above her body, showing her internal structure. The medics whispered among themselves, exchanging worried looks. The scan revealed a clot forming near one of her central nerve clusters. It was in a place so delicate that Thal surgery tools could not safely reach it. Their regeneration machines could not dissolve it without damaging surrounding tissue. It was a rare case, one that their medicine had no simple answer for. The lead medic, a middle-aged Thal named Varen, frowned. "We cannot touch that area. The nerves are too sensitive. If we operate, she may lose movement in half her body." Another medic suggested calling the High Medical Council, but Varen shook his head. "There is no time. The clot is growing fast." One of the assistants hesitated before speaking. "There is a human doctor aboard the station. Perhaps he can help." The room went silent. The Thal did not easily ask for help from humans. Humanity was still new to their alliance, often considered reckless and primitive by Thal standards. But now they had no choice. "Call him," Varen said finally. "Tell him it is urgent." Dr. Allen was working in the auxiliary lab, running tests on alien cell structures, when his communicator beeped. He wiped his hands on a sterile cloth and answered. "Dr. Allen," said a nervous voice, "we need you in the main infirmary. Captain Rinla has a severe internal clot. The Thal medical staff requests your help." The Thal rarely requested anything. He knew it had to be serious. Without another word, he grabbed his toolkit and ran toward the infirmary. As he entered, several Thal officers turned their cold eyes toward him. He could feel the tension in the room. He had learned to live with their mistrust. To them, humans were unpredictable, a young species from a violent planet. Useful only for their creativity and strange courage, Varen met him near the surgical table. "The captain's life is in danger," he said, his voice low. "The clot is in a delicate place, near a major neural cluster. Your human medical history suggests you may have methods that we lack." Allen nodded, stepping closer to the scan projection. "Show me the readings." He examined the hologram. It took only seconds for him to see the problem. The Thal had been right, the clot was in a nearly unreachable position. But he also saw something else, an opportunity. "I think I can treat it," Allen said calmly. "But I need full access to the patient, and I need the room cleared except for essential staff." The Thal officers looked uncertain. Varen hesitated. "You are asking for a great deal of trust, human." Allen met his gaze. "You called me for a reason. If you want her to live, let me do my job." After a pause, Varen gave a short nod. "Very well, proceed." Rinla's breathing was weak. Her skin had grown pale, and her pulse was fading. Allen put on sterilized gloves and activated his medical instrument Steny tools, designed for micro-operations. He attached a series of scanners that converted her alien biology into a format his system could read. The more he worked, the more fascinated he became. Thal anatomy was complex but elegant. Their nerve pathways were like glowing threads, branching in intricate webs. The clot sat right between two vital points, pressing on a channel that controlled lower body function. Alan steadied his hand. If this goes wrong, she could lose movement, he thought. But if it works, she'll make a full recovery. He used a microlaser to open a tiny path, far smaller than any Thal instrument could create. Then, with a thin magnetic probe, he began to draw the clot away from the nerve tissue. Sweat formed on his forehead as he watched the readings fluctuate. One small mistake would cause permanent damage. Varen stood behind him, tense but silent. The other Thal medics watched every motion, their disbelief growing as the humans' precision became clear. Humans were known for improvisation, but few expected this level of skill. After several long minutes, the readings stabilized. Alan's voice was calm, almost there. He injected a dissolving compound, something based on human nanotherapy, but modified for alien cells. The clot began to break apart safely, dispersing into harmless fragments. Rinla's pulse steadied. The monitors showed her blood flow returning to normal. Alan let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. She's stable. The Thal officers exchanged quiet looks. Varen stepped forward and checked the monitors himself. Incredible. How did you know to use that method? Alan gave a tired smile. Human medicine learned to work with fragile systems long before we reached the stars. Our bodies are full of weak points. It teaches us patience. Varen nodded slowly, still watching Rinla's calm breathing. Perhaps we have underestimated your kind. Hours later, Rinla lay in the recovery chamber. The lights were dim, and a soft hum filled the air. Alan stayed nearby, monitoring her progress. He didn't expect gratitude. He was used to silence after saving alien lives. When Rinla began to stir, he walked to her side. Her silver eyes blinked open, confusion in her gaze. She saw the human standing over her and tensed slightly. You are safe, Alan said gently. The clot is gone. You'll recover soon. Her voice was weak, but steady. You treated me. Yes, Alan replied. Your people's tools couldn't reach the area. I had to use a human technique. She looked at him for a long moment. You could have failed and caused damage.
I know,
Alan said. But I didn't. For the first time, Rinla saw something different in his eyes. There was no arrogance, only quiet certainty. She turned her gaze away, unsure how to respond. Among the Thal, admitting weakness was shameful. Yet she was alive because of this human skill. When Varen entered the room later, he found both of them silent. He gave Alan a brief nod of acknowledgement. The captain will make a full recovery. You have done something few could have achieved. Alan packed his tools and said, Just doing my duty. Then he walked out, leaving the alien officers watching him with new respect. Outside the infirmary, the corridors of Vareth Station glowed with artificial light. Alan looked out one of the long glass panels, watching the planet below. It was strange, he thought, how fragile life could be even in the most advanced civilizations. He didn't know it yet, but that operation would change how the Thal viewed humans forever. The story of one human medic who treated what no alien could would soon spread across fleets and worlds. Some would call him reckless. Others would call him brilliant. But all would remember the day when a single human hand saved the life of a Thal captain and quietly shifted the balance of respect between two species. The artificial lights of Vareth Station dimmed to night cycle, casting a soft blue glow across the medical ward. Most of the staff had left, but Captain Rinla remained awake. Her mind was restless. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw flashes of the human's hands, working with calm precision. Moving across her skin with purpose and care, Thal soldiers were trained to suppress emotion. Yet something about what had happened disturbed her thoughts. She had been taught that humans were reckless, ruled by impulse, and dangerous when unsupervised. But that same human had saved her life when even her own people had no answer. She shifted slightly on the bed. feeling a strange weakness in her lower body. The pain was gone, but she could sense that her strength had not fully returned. A quiet sound came from the door, and she turned her head. Dr. Allen entered with a tablet in his hand. His expression was calm and professional. "Good evening, Captain. How are you feeling?" Rinla stared at him, her voice steady but cool. "I am stable. The pain has stopped. I am regaining strength." "That's good," Allen said, checking the readings on the monitor beside her bed. "Your recovery is going smoothly. The dissolved clot is gone, and your neural patterns are returning to normal." She studied him as he worked. His movements were methodical, but unhurried. Humans always seemed more expressive than Thal, yet his face carried quiet focus instead of pride. After a long silence, she asked, "Why did you volunteer to treat me?" Allen looked up, slightly surprised. "Because you needed help." "That's my job," Rinla frowned. "You risked causing permanent damage to a Thal officer. If you had failed, your alliance with us would have suffered." Allen gave a small shrug. "I didn't think about politics. I saw a patient who would die without intervention. That was enough." His answer puzzled her. To Thal minds, logic always guided action. Emotions were seen as weaknesses. Yet this human spoke of duty as if it came from instinct, not reason. "You did not hesitate?" she asked. "Not for a second," he said. "I've seen worse situations. On my world, we often treat injuries with fewer resources than this. We adapt because we have to." Rinla looked away. His words stayed in her mind longer than she expected. Humans adapted. That was what made them unpredictable, but maybe that was also what made them capable. The next morning, the station returned to full brightness. News of the human medic's success had spread quietly through the ranks. Some Thal officers discussed it in whispers, unsure whether to praise or question what had happened. The Thal valued perfection, and they rarely admitted weakness. To rely on a human was an uncomfortable idea. In the command deck, Commander Valen, veteran of many campaigns, studied the reports. He was tall, even for a Thal, his armor polished and flawless. When Varen entered, Valen raised a silver brow. "Is it true?" The human doctor treated Captain Rinla without damaging her nerves. Varen nodded. "It is true, Commander. His method worked. She is recovering quickly." Valen leaned back in his chair. "Remarkable. Perhaps unsettling. Our technology could not solve the issue, yet his primitive tools succeeded." "How?" "He said he used a compound designed for human biology, but adjusted for Thal cells. His understanding of neural mapping is advanced, even without our technology." Valen's expression hardened. "Keep this quiet for now. The Council may not take kindly to knowing a human surpassed our healers." Irene hesitated. "With respect, Commander, perhaps we should learn from it. His method could help others." Valen's tone cooled. "You will file the report, but no wide distribution yet. We will decide after further review." Varen nodded, though he looked uneasy. He respected Valen, but he also knew that the truth had a way of spreading on its own. Later that day, Elan returned to check on Rinla again. She was sitting upright now, dressed in a light medical uniform, her posture straight as ever. Her eyes followed him closely. "You seem stronger," he said, smiling slightly. "I am," she replied. "Your treatment was effective. I owe you my life, though I am not sure how to repay that." "You don't have to repay me," he said. "Healing is its own reward." Rinla tilted her head, puzzled by his words again. Among the Thal debts were formal. Saving a life created an obligation. But this human dismissed the idea so easily. "You speak as if it costs nothing," she said. "It costs time, effort, and focus," he replied. "But it was the right thing to do." Her gaze softened a little, though her pride kept her expression still. "Perhaps humans value different things than we do," Elan chuckled quietly. "Maybe on Earth, we have a saying, 'Life is priceless.' You protect it no matter who it belongs to." His words carried a warmth that Rinla was not used to hearing. Thal language was full of precision but rarely emotion. The human's tone held both. Hours later, Allen met Varen in the corridor outside the medical bay. Varine's face looked troubled. Dr. Verine said, "The commander has requested a report on your procedure. He may want to review your access privileges." Elaine frowned slightly. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," Varine said, "but the Thal Council guards its reputation. They may see your success as inconvenient." Alan crossed his arms. "You mean they don't want to admit that a human saved one of their captains?" Varine sighed. "Pride runs deep among my people. Some may question whether you should have been allowed to operate." Elaine nodded slowly. "I understand. I didn't do it for fame. I did it because she was dying." Varine placed a hand on his shoulder. "I know, and I am grateful. But be careful. The Council does not appreciate surprises." Meanwhile, Rinla was released from the infirmary 2 days later. She walked carefully through the corridors, her balance steady, but her thoughts clouded. Every passing officer saluted her with respect, but she noticed something different in their eyes. Some looked impressed, others uncertain. They all knew she had survived because of a human. When she reached her quarters, she looked in the mirror. Her reflection showed strength, but she felt a quiet weight in her chest. The pride she once held so firmly now felt uncertain. She activated her personal console and recorded. Message to Commander Valen. "Sir, I am fully recovered. I request permission to resume duty." Alan's voice came through moments later. "Granted, Captain. But I will assign you to coordinate medical drills with the human doctor. The Council wants to observe his methods more closely. You will supervise." Rinla froze. "You want me to work with him?" "Yes," Valen said. "You owe him your life, and the Council wants to understand what makes his techniques effective. Consider it a special duty." The communication ended before she could respond. She stared at the console in silence. Working beside a human felt uncomfortable. She could not refuse an order from a superior officer. The following day, Elaine stood in the training chamber, preparing for the session. He had been told he would demonstrate medical techniques to Thal officers. When the door opened, Rinla entered in uniform, her posture as commanding as ever. Captain Allen greeted her. "I didn't expect to see you here. I was ordered to supervise this program," she replied. "You will demonstrate your procedures while I ensure protocol is followed." Allen nodded politely. "Then let's begin." He activated a holographic model of Thal anatomy, explaining how human diagnostic tools worked. His voice was steady, his tone patient. The Thal officers watched with quiet interest. Rinla stood beside him, her arms folded, her sharp eyes following every motion. At first, she viewed him as an outsider showing off. But as he spoke, she noticed the clarity of his explanations. He described complex ideas in simple language, using analogies and examples that made sense even across species. When a young Thal medic asked, "Why do humans take such risks in surgery?" Allen replied, "Because sometimes risk is the only path to success. You can wait for perfect conditions and lose a life, or you can act with skill and give that life a chance." Rinla looked at him, surprised again by the calm conviction in his tone. His confidence was not arrogance. It was built on experience. After the session ended, the Thal officers left quietly. Rinla approached Allen as he packed his tools. "You speak with certainty," she said, "as if fear does not exist for you." Allen smiled faintly. "Of course it exists, but fear reminds us to be careful. It should not stop us from doing what matters." Her gaze met his. "You make it sound simple." "Maybe it is," he said. "Sometimes the hardest part is believing that you can succeed." For a long moment, neither spoke. Rinla saw something in his expression that felt unfamiliar, a steady kindness, free of judgment. She had met many warriors and officers, but few carried that quiet strength. When she left the room, her thoughts were conflicted. She still found human behavior strange, but now she felt a small measure of respect. The training hall was silent after the demonstration ended. The holographic displays faded into thin air, leaving the room lit only by the soft glow of the station's overhead lights. Captain Rinla stood at the far end of the chamber, still thinking about everything she had seen. She had watched Dr. Allen perform simulated procedures that Thal medics considered impossible, use methods that looked simple. Yet each movement was backed by an understanding that went far beyond surface logic. She could not ignore what she had seen. He did not rely only on machines or instructions. He used instinct, a word that the Thal language rarely used. When the last of the trainees left the hall, Alan approached her with a polite nod. "Thank you for assisting today, Captain." The officers were attentive. "I hope it helped them understand a few new methods." Rinla turned toward him. "They learned something, but you should know that many still question your ways. Some think your methods are unpredictable." Alan smiled faintly. "That's fair. Humans are unpredictable. But that can be an advantage when the usual rules do not work." She studied his calm face. "You make unpredictability sound like a strategy." "In a way it is," he replied. "Our history taught us that nothing ever goes according to plan. So we learn to adapt. Sometimes the right choice is the one that no one expects." Rinla gave a slow nod. She wanted to argue, but could not find the words. His logic was different from the Thal kind, yet it held its own strength. The next few days passed in a quiet rhythm. Alan and Rinla worked together to organize more joint training sessions. The station's medical division began adopting small parts of his approach. Many officers remained skeptical, but curiosity slowly replaced distrust. One evening, as the station rotated toward the red light of the planet below, an emergency alarm echoed through the corridors. Alan and Rinla were in the central bay reviewing reports when the lights flashed crimson. A voice came through the intercom. "Alert. Reactor maintenance crew injured in Sector 12. Radiation exposure detected. All medical teams respond." Alan grabbed his emergency kit and looked at Rinla. "Come with me. We will need every hand we can get." Without hesitation, she followed. They ran through the long metallic halls until they reached the damaged sector. The air was thick with smoke, and warning sirens pulsed across the walls. A containment shield flickered weakly at the far end. Several Thal engineers were on the ground, coughing and struggling to move. Alan knelt beside the nearest one. "Radiation poisoning. We need to move them fast." Rinla opened her communicator. "This is Captain Rinla. We need immediate evacuation to the medical wing. Prepare containment pods." 2 medics arrived with stretchers. Alan helped lift the injured crew while giving quick orders. "Keep their air filters on high flow. We cannot waste a second." One of the engineers grabbed his arm weakly. "The reactor is unstable. There is still one technician trapped behind the shield." Rinla turned sharply. "How long until the core vents?" 8 minutes at most," the engineer gasped. Alan looked toward the flickering barrier. "Someone has to go in." Rinla's voice hardened. "The radiation inside will kill anyone who enters." Alan tightened the strap on his respirator. "Then we better not stay long." Before she could stop him, he moved toward the access gate. Rinla caught his wrist. "You will not survive that exposure." He met her eyes. "If we leave that technician, everyone on this level could die. I have done worse under pressure. I will be fine." For a moment, she saw the same determination she had seen when he operated on her. Calm, fearless, and absolutely certain. "I will go with you," she said. Alan hesitated. "Your body has just recovered. Should not risk it." "I am still your commanding officer on this station," she said firmly. "We go together." He gave a brief nod. "Then let's move." They stepped through the access gate as the barrier field weakened. The heat and light inside the chamber were intense. Warning signs blinked across the walls, and a low hum filled the air. Could see the trapped technician pinned beneath a collapsed support beam. Alan scanned the area. "We have 4 minutes before the secondary vent cycle. Help me lift this." Rinla positioned herself opposite him. Together they pushed against the beam using all their strength. The structure shifted slowly until they managed to pull the technician free. Alan checked his pulse. He is alive, but weak. "We need to stabilize him now." Rinla's breathing grew heavy, but she nodded. Alan injected a stabilizer and sealed the man's wounds. He looked toward the exit. "We have to go. The field will collapse soon." They carried the technician together, their suits crackling under the radiation alarms. As they reached the exit, the containment system gave a final warning tone. Alan pushed Rinla forward first. The barrier sealed just as the reactor chamber erupted with a burst of blinding light. The sound faded slowly, replaced by the hum of emergency systems coming back online. Alan sank to one knee, breathing hard. Rinla turned toward him. His suit monitor flashed with elevated readings. "You took the worst of the exposure," she said. He nodded, his voice quiet. "I will be fine once the decontamination process starts." She helped him stand, her usually firm hands steadying him gently. For a moment she felt the strange human warmth through the layers of the suit. Hours later, in the medical wing, Alan sat in a recovery pod while the decontamination cycle cleansed his system. The radiation levels were low enough not to cause lasting harm, but his exhaustion was clear. Rinla stood nearby, watching through the transparent shield. When the cycle ended, Alan stepped out, his face pale but composed. "The technician is stable," he said. "No permanent damage." Rinla crossed her arms. "You acted without hesitation again. You could have been killed." He gave a tired smile. "So could you, but we both made it." Her tone softened.
"Ow, you are reckless!"
"Maybe," he said, "but sometimes recklessness saves lives." She paused, then said quietly, "You saved more than one today, including me again." Alan looked surprised. "You were fine?" She shook her head. "Not only today, I mean before. And now. I have begun to see why humans are respected in your own territories." He looked at her curiously. "And why is that?" "You act with heart," she said simply. "We act with logic. Both have value. Sometimes heart sees what logic cannot." Alan smiled. "Not as a hero, but as someone grateful for understanding." "Then maybe we both learned something." Over the next week, Rinla worked closely with him to adapt human emergency protocols for the Thal fleet. The once skeptical officers began to trust his approach. The rescue mission had reached every corner of the station. Stories spread of how the human medic and the Thal captain entered a reactor chamber together and saved a trapped crew member. Commander. Valen called them both to the council chamber. The air inside was heavy with formality. Several high-ranking Thal stood in silence as Valen spoke. "Captain Rinla, Dr. Allen, your recent actions prevented a major disaster. The council recognizes your service." Rinla bowed her head respectfully. Allen stood straight but humble. Valen continued, "Doctor, your methods have proven effective. The council has approved a program to integrate human medical knowledge into Thal systems. Captain Rinla will lead the initiative." Rinla blinked in surprise. "I will lead," "Yes," Valen said. "You're familiar with the humans' techniques, and your cooperation has shown positive results. It is time our alliance grew stronger." Alan looked at her with a small smile. "Looks like we are officially partners now." Rinla glanced at him, trying to hide the faint hint of pride in her expression. "It appears so." That evening, the two of them stood by one of the large viewing windows. The red planet below glowed like a sea of fire, its atmosphere swirling in slow patterns. Rinla spoke first. "Before meeting you, I believed humans were guided by chaos. Thought your instincts made you dangerous. Now I understand that your kind survives because you accept uncertainty." Alan nodded. "And I thought Thal were cold and unfeeling. But now I see your discipline is not coldness. It is control. You feel deeply, but choose when to show it." They stood in silence for a while, watching the planet turn. The reflection of the stars shimmered in the glass, mixing with the faint lights of the station. Rinla turned toward him. "Do you believe different species can truly understand each other?" Alan looked thoughtful. "Maybe not completely, but we can learn enough to respect each other. That is the start of something better." Rinla gave a small nod. "Perhaps this alliance will last longer than the ones before it." "I think it will," he said quietly. For the first time since the incident, Rinla allowed herself to relax. The fear that had once filled her heart was gone. In its place was trust, not blind faith, but trust earned through courage and compassion. Vareth Station continued its slow orbit above the Red World, carrying both human and Thal crews working side by side. Somewhere deep within its metal walls, a fragile bond had formed, one that might one day change the course of two civilizations. The quiet hum of Vareth Station had returned after the reactor incident. For most of the crew, life continued as usual. Engineers repaired damaged corridors. Security conducted routine patrols. and medics checked the station's inhabitants. Yet beneath the surface, a subtle shift had occurred. The actions of Dr. Allen and Captain Rinla had stirred curiosity and unease. In the officers' quarters, Rinla paced slowly. Her uniform was crisp, her silver eyes reflecting the soft glow of the station lights. She could not ignore the human who had saved her, not once, but twice. She had seen his skill, his instinct, and his unwavering courage. Thal tradition demanded that she maintain authority and distance, yet something about him unsettled her usual calm. She paused, letting her gaze rest on the holoscreen before her. Reports of crew training exercises and medical briefings scrolled across it. Allen's techniques were being implemented in the drills, and the results were positive. The younger officers had begun asking for his guidance. Rinla shook her head slightly. It should not be so easy to gain their trust, she muttered. Meanwhile, Allen worked in the infirmary, cataloging the medical data from the recent emergencies. His human ways of organization and observation contrasted sharply with the Thal approach. Where Thal medics relied on strict procedure and hierarchy, Allen combined structure with improvisation. He observed patterns, adjusted techniques, and taught others to anticipate problems before they arose. A young Thal medic approached him hesitantly. "Dr. Allen," the captain requested, "I ask your opinion on adapting her training drills for larger crews." Allen looked up, smiling. "Of course. We can combine human flexibility with Thal discipline. Let's design drills that keep everyone safe while preparing them for unpredictable situations." The medic nodded, scribbling notes in silence. Allen returned to his work, unaware that Rinla was standing at the doorway, quietly observing. When the training session began, Rinla supervised as Allen demonstrated techniques for stabilizing injured personnel during simulated emergencies. The exercises were more demanding than previous drills, combining both human improvisation and Thal precision. During one scenario, a Thal trainee struggled to secure a casualty. Allen moved quickly, guiding the medic's hands with calm instructions. The trainee followed. The simulation ended successfully. Rinla noticed the small gestures, the way Allen never raised his voice, how he encouraged the trainees instead of criticizing mistakes, and how he remained composed even when unexpected problems arose. She had never seen such behavior among the Thal officers, who often considered errors as personal failures rather than opportunities to learn. She found herself thinking about the first time he had treated her clot. The fear she had felt was overwhelming, yet he had remained steady, confident, and patient. That memory had stayed with her, shaping her respect for humans in a way she had not expected. After the exercises, Rinla and Allen walked together through one of the observation corridors. The red planet hung beneath them like a massive jewel. "You handle fear differently than we do," she said quietly. Allen tilted his head. "Humans feel fear like anyone else, but we train ourselves to act despite it. That is what makes the difference." She looked out the window, considering his words. "I am beginning to understand why your kind survives in dangerous situations. You trust your instincts and your training at the same time." Allen nodded. "Exactly. It is not recklessness. It is careful action based on experience and observation. You could have been reckless when you entered the reactor chamber. You risked your life for a technician. Most humans might have hesitated." "I have hesitated before," he said. "I have failed before. But hesitation in emergencies can cost lives. I learned early to trust my judgment and my hands. That training saved you and the technician." For a long moment, Rinla said nothing. She admired his bravery, his calm, and the way he treated every life as valuable, regardless of species. That night, the station's council convened to discuss the integration of human medical techniques into the Thal fleet. Commander Valen presided, along with Varen, Rinla, and other senior officers. Allen presented his data clearly, using holographic projections to illustrate his methods. The council observed quietly, some skeptical, others intrigued. "Your approach is unconventional," Valen said after the presentation. "Yet the results are undeniable. Your techniques have prevented injuries and fatalities that would have been unavoidable with our standard procedures. Alan bowed slightly. Thank you, Commander. I only applied what I know from human medicine and adapted it to Thal physiology, Rinla added. Dr. Allen's methods are practical and effective. I have supervised their implementation, and the results speak for themselves. A murmur spread among the council members. Some officers were visibly impressed. Others frowned, reluctant to admit that a human outperformed their traditional methods. Valen raised his hand, silencing the room. We will integrate these techniques gradually. Captain Rinla will oversee training programs, and Dr. Allen will continue as an advisor. It is time we accept that humans have value beyond novelty. The room fell silent. Rinla glanced at Allen. He simply nodded politely without any hint of pride. Over the next few days, Rinla observed Allen working with different crews. He treated injuries, guided simulations, and demonstrated emergency procedures. Each time, he remained composed, steady, and encouraging. The younger Thal officers began approaching him for guidance without hesitation. Rinla realized that she had been holding herself apart from him because of tradition and pride, but she could not ignore the fact that he was right. Humans had an ability to adapt, to act decisively under pressure, and to teach others with patience and respect. She caught herself thinking about the risks he had taken in the reactor chamber. Most Thal would have considered it foolish, but he had calculated the danger and acted anyway. He had saved multiple lives without hesitation or complaint. Rinla's respect grew quietly. Fear and pride no longer held her back. She realized that humans were capable of courage beyond logic and skill beyond technology. One afternoon, a minor accident occurred in the cargo bay. A large container had fallen, trapping a crew member beneath its weight. Rinla and Allen rushed to the scene. Allen assessed the situation quickly. We need leverage and support beams. I will guide you. Rinla nodded, and together, they lifted the container just enough to free the crew member. Allen immediately checked the injured man's vitals, applying a stabilizer. You moved too fast, Rinla said afterward. You could have been injured. Allen shook his head. I calculated the risk. I knew exactly what pressure points to avoid. The human approach is careful, not reckless. Rinla watched him with quiet amazement. He acted as if danger was an equation he could solve, not something to fear. She thought back to the first Claude operation. The same precision, the same calm hands, the same quiet confidence. You inspire respect, Rinla said quietly. Allen looked surprised. I only do what is necessary, Rinla nodded. Yet doing what is necessary often requires more courage than anyone realizes. By the end of the week, Rinla noticed a change among the crew. The Thal officers, once skeptical and suspicious of the human, began to adopt his methods. The younger medics approached Allen without hesitation, asking for advice on injuries, surgeries, and emergency scenarios. Even senior officers began consulting him on procedures that had previously been considered too delicate for intervention. Rinla realized that fear had transformed into respect. Not blind obedience, but careful admiration for someone who acted with intelligence, courage, and compassion. One evening, she joined Allen near the observation window, looking out at the red planet below. The station's lights reflected in the glass, casting a gentle glow across their faces. You changed how many officers see humans, she said. Allen shook his head. I just do my job. Humans are capable, but so are the Thal. We just have different ways of showing it. Rinla studied him. You act as if nothing frightens you. Allen gave a faint smile. Fear exists. But I act despite it. That is what matters. She nodded slowly. Perhaps that is why your kind survives where others do not. A quiet moment passed between them. Rinla had spent her life valuing control, logic, and discipline. Now she saw the value of instinct, courage, and adaptability. Allen did not replace Thal methods. He enhanced them. She realized that the bond forming between humans and Thal on Vareth Station was not just about survival. It was about mutual understanding, trust, and respect. Rinla turned back to the observation window, watching the planet below. For the first time, she allowed herself to hope, not just for the station, not just for the crew, but for the future of cooperation between species. Alan's presence was calm, steady, and unassuming, yet it had made all the difference. She knew that the lessons he brought were more than medical techniques. They were lessons of courage, patience, and the quiet strength of humanity. Vareth Station rotated slowly in orbit, carrying its fragile alliance of humans and Thal within its walls. Respect had replaced fear, and cooperation had replaced suspicion. And somewhere deep inside the hearts of those who had witnessed Alan's work, a new understanding of humanity had begun to grow. The morning on Vareth Station was calm, though the previous week had left its mark. Repairs had been completed, and the crew moved with a new sense of efficiency. Orders were followed, but there was an undercurrent of change. Humans were no longer seen as outsiders. The story of Dr. Alan's skill and courage had spread quietly among the officers. Respect had replaced hesitation. Captain Rinla stood on the observation deck, looking out at the planet below. The red surface swirled with storms and dust, and its beauty reminded her of the fragility of life. A soft chime announced the arrival of Dr. Alan. He entered with his usual calm demeanor. "Good morning, Captain," he said politely. Rinla nodded. "Morning, Doctor. I wanted to speak with you before the next training exercise." Alan inclined his head. Of course. They walked together toward the medical wing. Along the way, crew members nodded or waved in recognition. Some of the younger Thal medics smiled, remembering the lessons Alan had taught. Rinla noticed their changed attitude and allowed herself a small sense of satisfaction in the training chamber. And Alan prepared a new set of simulations. This time they focused on multi-casualty scenarios, combining human improvisation with Thal precision. The room was filled with both human and Thal trainees. Working in teams under the guidance of the captain and the medic, Alan demonstrated how to stabilize multiple injured personnel at once. He moved quickly from one station to another, giving instructions, adjusting positions, and offering encouragement. His methods required trust, observation, and decisiveness. The trainees struggled at first, but under his guidance, they adapted. Rinla watched closely, impressed by how easily the Thal officers followed a human's lead. The once skeptical medics now listened attentively, applying Alan's techniques with growing confidence. It was a transformation she had not expected. After the exercises, Rinla approached him. "You have changed how my officers see humans," she said. Alan smiled slightly. "I only show them what we can do. They had the ability all along. I just helped them see it." Rinla nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps that is what makes humans different. You do not demand respect. You earn it through action." He gave a faint shrug. Actions speak louder than words, especially when lives are at stake. Later that day, an alert sounded across the station. One of the outer docking bays reported a collision with a small freighter. The crew scrambled to respond. Alan and Rinla rushed to the scene with their emergency kits and communication devices. The freighter had sustained damage to its hull, and several crew members were trapped inside. Smoke filled the area, and the risk of decompression was high. Alan assessed the situation immediately. "We need to stabilize the structure and extract the injured carefully. If we act too slowly, they could suffocate." Rinla nodded. "We will work together." "Follow my lead where necessary, Doctor." They entered the bay, carefully maneuvering around debris. Alan guided the human and Thal rescue teams with precision. His calm voice directed each movement. Rinla coordinated the Thal officers, blending discipline with flexibility. A young Thal engineer cried out, "My arm! I cannot reach the hatch." Alan moved to assist. "Hold steady. Place your feet here. Apply pressure to this panel." Engineer followed his instructions. With careful guidance, the hatch opened, and the injured crew member was pulled free. Alan quickly checked vitals and applied a stabilizer. The team continued. Working efficiently under their joint leadership, by the time the final injured crew member was rescued, the docking bay was calm. No life had been lost. Rinla turned to Alan. "You handled that with ease. Your timing was perfect." Alan shook his head. It was a team effort. You guided the Thal officers well. I could not have done it alone. For the first time, Rinla allowed herself to smile. She realized that trust was not weakness. It was strength when combined with skill and cooperation. After the emergency was resolved, the station held a brief assembly. Commander Valen addressed the crew. Today, we witnessed the effectiveness of cooperation between humans and Thal, he said. Captain Rinla and Dr. Allen demonstrated courage, skill, and leadership. Their actions saved lives and ensured the safety of the station.
Rinla
Stepped forward. This is not about one person, she said. It is about learning to work together, combining our strengths. Humans and Thal can accomplish more together than alone. Allen added, trust each other. Observe carefully. Act decisively. Life depends on it. The crew listened in silence, absorbing the lesson. Among the Thal, such acknowledgement was rare. Their rigid hierarchy rarely allowed praise across species lines. Yet the respect was genuine, earned through action and competence. That evening, Rinla and Allen walked through the quiet corridors of Vareth Station. The red planet below glowed with fading sunlight. You have taught them more than medical techniques, Rinla said softly. You have shown them how to see beyond fear and suspicion. Allen shook his head. I only treated patients and guided teams. The rest was up to them. She smiled faintly. Perhaps. But your presence inspires confidence. Humans have a way of showing courage quietly, without arrogance. That is rare. Allen looked at her, slightly surprised. Quiet courage can be powerful. Sometimes it speaks louder than words or orders. She nodded thoughtfully. I have learned that, and I respect it. In the following days, the training programs continued. Allen worked closely with Rinla, teaching human medical techniques while respecting Thal protocols. The younger officers began demonstrating initiative and adaptability. Even senior officers consulted him for advice, no longer treating him as an outsider. Rinla observed each session, quietly noting how humans and Thal complemented each other. Human creativity filled gaps where technology and strict logic could not reach. Thal, precision, and discipline prevented errors. Together, the combination was effective beyond anything she had expected. During one session, trainee asked Allen why he risked his life during previous emergencies. He paused before answering. Because life matters. Not just human life, not just Thal life. Every life is worth protecting. Fear cannot stop us from doing what is right, the trainee nodded, understanding more in that moment than any lesson could teach. Weeks passed. Vareth Station had stabilized, and the bond between human and Thal crews had grown. Rinla approached Allen one evening near the observation deck. Doctor, she said, you have changed how we see humans. Not as unpredictable outsiders, but as allies with courage, skill, and patience. Allen looked at her. That is not just me. That is all humans. We survive by learning, adapting, and helping each other. You have shown me that the Thal are capable of the same. Rinla nodded. Perhaps our alliance will be stronger than we imagined. We will remember this lesson. Allen smiled faintly. Then the future looks promising. For a long moment, they stood together, watching the red planet below. The station's hum and the distant stars reminded them of the vastness of space. Yet within Vareth Station, two species had built trust, mutual respect, and understanding. Rinla finally spoke. You have shown that courage, compassion, and skill are not limited to one species. Perhaps we can achieve great things if we continue to learn from each other. Allen looked at her, then at the stars. I believe we can. Humanity may be new to this part of the galaxy, but we have something worth sharing. And now, so do you. The captain allowed herself a small smile. Then let this be the beginning of something greater, for humans and Thal alike. As night fell on Vareth Station, a quiet peace settled over the corridors. The crew had faced danger, learned to trust each other, and survived. The bond between species had been tested and proven. The station would continue its orbit above the red planet but within its walls. A new understanding of humanity had taken root, and somewhere in the vastness of space, Stories of a human medic who saved a Thal captain would spread, not as a tale of recklessness, but as a testament to courage, skill, and the quiet strength that humanity carried into the galaxy. For Captain Rinla and Dr. Allen, and for all who witnessed their actions, the lesson was clear. Respect and trust earned through action and integrity could bridge even the widest divide between species, and that was how humans earned a place of honor in the hearts and minds of the Thal.